Every day means every day, episode number 7. And today, my friends, we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun because this is a question that people have been asking me quite literally since the time I was probably 16 years old. Okay. People who knew me, my own friends, would come to me and say, B, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell anybody. But I'm curious. I just got to know. You on the juice? Are you taking steroids? The answer is absolutely, unequivocally no. I've never done it, not once in my entire life. Before you start saying cap in the comments, okay, I'm going to put in the description a link to my blood work from the last 2 years. I do blood work every 6 months or so. So I'm going to put my blood work down there so you can see that. And then if they'll let me get it, I got to see after I record this video. If they will let me get it, I will get all of my drug tests from the University of Michigan. Keep in mind, technically, even though I was cut from the team every year, I was on the roster of a Division I sports team from 2015 to 2020. And they drug test you. And they say it's random. I think that's nonsense because my freshman year, I looked pretty much the same as I do now, but I was 18. My freshman year, they randomly drug tested me at least 5 or 6 times. So I've got plenty of proof to show you that I'm not on anabolic steroids. And I know there's going to be at least one person in the comment that says, yeah, but that only would show, if you're on steroids in that particular moment when the test was done. You could have done a cycle in high school and then never done it again. But listen to me, bro. I was such a goody two-shoes when I was in high school. I would not have even known where to buy weed, much less anabolic steroids. Okay? I'm just telling you. It has never, ever happened. And quite frankly, I'm terrified of the things. I'm horrified of them. I think that the potential side effects never, ever, ever outweigh the benefits. Would I would love to take them. Like, don't get me wrong. I think I would be freaking yoked if I took anabolic steroids. I think it would be just a great time. I'd be superhuman strong. However, I do not think it is ethical to my future family to put myself in a position where my heart's going to explode by the time I'm 50 years old. I don't think that that's ethical. And quite frankly, I'd like to live a long time and I'd like to take good care of myself. And vanity is not worth it to me. So that's my take on it. By the way, if you want to do them, I don't see anything wrong with it, especially if you're a professional, competitive bodybuilder or something. That's a decision for you to make. Again, I think there's ethical ramification if you want to have a family. But if it's just you, do what you want to do. Now, I do have a problem with all these fitness influencers who a lot of them have great messages, like the messages that they're putting out there, especially for young guys, telling them to get after it, get in the gym, make something of yourself. I love it. But if you're going to make money selling fitness programs and sell them the dream of what you look like and not disclose that you're juiced to the gills at Wes Watson, at really everybody that's in the industry at the moment, I do think that that's unethical as well. Even though you're on the whole doing a great thing for people and giving them a very inspirational message, I think you should just disclose the fact that you're doing it. Nothing wrong with it. Just say it. Anyway, I digress. That's my opinion and my take on steroids. But the topic of this video is, how do you get jacked without using steroids? And I feel like I'm in a unique position and I'm qualified to actually be able to talk on this topic. So the first thing that I want to talk about is genetics. And the honest reality is genetics play a huge role and nobody wants to talk about it. It's kind of like the IQ thing. We know that IQ is one of the greatest predictors of financial success, and there is nothing you can do about it. You can't train it. You can't increase it. It just is what it is, right? And we look at that, especially in America, and we're wired to believe the American dream, that if you work hard enough, anything's possible. Kind of, also kind of not. I'm a smart guy. I don't think I could ever work hard enough to do what Elon Musk has done. I just don't. I don't. I think he's brilliant. I think he might be an alien. He's just brilliant. He's got a different level of processing than I was born with. And no matter how much I develop the gifts that I have, I'm not going to be him. Okay. But I have my own gifts. So for me, it's easy for me to put on muscle mass. Even my biological father, he has always had big arms. So the biceps are one muscle group where it's just easy for me to put on mass. I have a genetic predisposition to be able to do that. Now, you still have to put in the work. Genetics, for the most part, they dictate the maximum amount of muscle mass that your skeletal system is willing to carry. Basically, that's the easiest way to think about it. And so some people have a higher ceiling than others. That's the best way to make sense of it. And so I was just born genetically with a relatively high ceiling. And the unfortunate truth of the matter is there are plenty of people out there who could even be on anabolic steroids and be working their butts off and be disciplined and go to the gym every single day, and they're just not going to look like me. And there's other people, by the way, I'm not saying that I'm the be all end all. I'm certainly not. There's other people who are also natural, bodybuilders and stuff. And I can't ever look like them, no matter how hard that I work. I could be doing 3-a-days and doing all the right things, getting 12 hours of sleep and creatine, protein, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not going to get there because they have a higher genetic ceiling than I have. And guess what? That's okay. It's how the world works. I can sing all day long. I can hire the best singing instructors that have ever lived. I'm probably not going to sound like Beyonce anytime soon. Why? I just don't have that gift. It's just not really my thing. I'm working on it. I am taking singing lessons, by the way, but it's not necessarily my natural gift. So yes, genetics play a big part, but don't get discouraged because everything else I'm going to talk about in this video is going to tell you how to maximize the genetics that you have. Again, I don't know what your genetic ceiling is, but don't use that as an excuse not to maximize what you do have and not to try and make progress, because no matter what that ceiling is, I guarantee you, you can make progress, you can improve, you can get better compared to where you're at today. So with that being said, number 2, I have been training since I was 10 years old. Process that. Slow down. Pause the video. Process that. I started gymnastics when I was 10 years old. Okay. Now I wasn't training every day. I started with 2 classes a week. Very, very quickly, I moved up to 3. Very, very quickly, I moved up to 4. Very quickly, I moved up to 5. And it wasn't that long after that, I moved up to 6 classes a week. Okay. So that was mostly calisthenics training, but I'm still active. I'm still working. I'm still in the gym multiple hours a day, multiple days a week from the time I was 10 years old. I have not stopped since I was 10 years old. Now, again, I'm not saying I trained I didn't start the everyday means everyday thing until a couple years ago. But on the whole, there has not been a week that has gone by since I was 10 years old where I haven't done some sort of intense physical activity less than 4 times a week. I'm 27 now. That's been 17 years. I'm telling you, consistency adds up. Consistency adds up. And so whenever people talk to me in the gym, they're like, hey, what's your, routine? I always give them the slogan, every day means every day. That's the routine, because at the end of the day, your compound interest of effort put in over time is going to mean way more than any hyper specific training technique, than any like obscure exercise that nobody's ever heard of, but some monk in the mountains somewhere, and he came down with all of his wisdom in a cloud of smoke and taught you this exercise nobody's ever heard of. That's not going to make a difference. It's not going to move the needle for you. What will move the needle for you is massive amounts of effort consistently over time. It's a volume game through and through. So that's the second thing, is every day means every day. I've been doing this since I was 10 years old. It just adds up. Okay, the third thing is I have been pretty good about diet. Now, pause that for a second, because anybody that knows me is going to be like, B, you have the most ridiculous diet I've ever seen of anybody in my life. Don't lie to the people. I'm not saying that I eat perfectly, because Lord knows I do not. But one thing that I've been pretty good about over the years is having low calories, high protein. There's this nonsense myth that for whatever reason, people think that you have to be in this massive caloric surplus in order to build any muscle, that you have to be bulking, i.e. getting fat, in order to put on any muscle mass. It's just not the truth. Muscle synthesis and fat loss are 2 separate systems. 2 separate systems. If you eat high protein, 1 gram per pound of goal body weight, not current body weight. Let's run it back. You need to understand this. 1 gram per pound of goal body weight per day. If you do that, you will build muscle. Point blank, period. If you do that and you train properly in a hypertrophic way, you will build muscle. Period. That's muscle synthesis. It's its own system in the body. Losing fat is calories in versus calories out. So if you're in a caloric deficit, meaning you consume less in a day than you are burning or expending in a day, you will lose fat. Both of these processes can work simultaneously. If you're in a slight caloric deficit and a surplus of protein, you will gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Period. Point blank. This is how people stay lean year round. This is also how most athletes eat. unless, we're talking about swimmers carb loading before a meet or something. But most uh, um, athletes who need to be lean but also strong, this is how they eat. Okay. If you do that consistently, it's going to really, really help you with your aesthetic goals. So that's the third thing I would say. The fourth thing I will tell you, how I was able to get jacked with absolutely zero anabolic steroids, is gymnastics. Gymnastics exposes you to some very unique forces on the body, meaning, there's your plyometrics and all the bounding and jumping skills. But still rings is one of the best things that ever happened to my body composition, ever. The reason being is because we did all the exercises on still rings with straight arms. So when you do an iron cross or a Maltese or a planche, your arms are completely straight. Your elbows are locked out. What that does is, let's say you're doing a Maltese. That's when you're holding the rings, kind of like an iron cross, right? But you're parallel to the floor. So instead of an iron cross being here, you're here. So you're flat, parallel to the floor, arms out beside you, airplane mode. Looks sick, right? You look at that and you say, okay, that kind of looks like a chest exercise. It is. It's a lot of outer pec, right? It's also a bicep exercise because your biceps are under a lot of stress, a lot of load, but it's in full extension. So if you look at gymnasts, a lot of our arms, they're not quite as peaky as other athletes. You tend to get a very well-rounded bicep, and it looks bigger because there's a lot more meat in the middle of it because we're doing so much work when it's at full extension. So we're working that insertion point on either side to give it that real bouldery look, right? Doing exercises where you're under the tension of a stretch is one of the best. We know this. The training science shows us that stretch, going from, like, if you're doing a curl, for example, the stretch is the most important thing. Going from here to here, that's where all the gains are. Right there. Right there. Going from that stretch position, okay? So imagine the forces that we're under when we do still rings, constantly in that stretch position. It just does wonders for the body, both from a strength perspective and a hypertrophy perspective. So I think that was also something else that really, really helped me get jacked without the use of steroids. The last thing that I will tell you that made a huge impact for me was I really genuinely go hard in the gym. And I don't mean this as like some alpha male ego, like, I go so hard in the gym when you're lazy and you don't do it. I hate videos like that. But I can tell when I work out with a client, I can tell in 2 seconds if they're putting in the level of effort necessary to get the results that they want. Everybody says, okay, I want to gain X amount of size on my biceps, or I want 6-pack abs, or I want to accomplish this, or I want to accomplish that. If I get into the gym with you and, let's say that you're doing one of my programs on the Everyday Means Everyday app, and you go through it and it's an 8 to 12 rep range, primed for hypertrophy, and you kind of go through the motions and it doesn't really look that painful or difficult for you, and you rack the weight back down and you're not that out of breath, and you're like, all right, what's next? That's the problem. It's probably not your sleep. It's probably not your protein intake. It's probably not the workout construction. It's probably you're just not freaking trying hard enough. Your weights are not heavy enough. If you are not using a weight that is sufficient enough for you to make a god-awful ugly face by the last 2 reps, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. I'm not saying that you have to train to failure every single set. There's a lot of research that shows that is not optimal either. But you should get pretty close. You should get pretty close, okay? And so if you are not significantly out of breath, if you are not significantly exerting yourself by the end of every single set, if you're not doing 40 seconds of time under tension per set, right? I see a lot of these guys, they'll do a set of 12 bench presses and they're done in like 16 seconds. I'm like, your body hasn't even warmed up, because they're just going and they're not controlling the eccentric. And so there's not enough time under tension to even get you in that prime hypertrophic zone, right? 40 seconds time under tension, 8 to 12 reps. This is hypertrophy. This is what we do. Your set should not be 12 seconds long. It's not long enough. You're not controlling the eccentric. You're not lifting heavy enough. You're not trying hard enough. It should be difficult. It's not enough to go through the motions in the gym. It should be very difficult. We grow from stress, both spiritually, physically, mentally, all of the above. We grow from overcoming stress. If it is not stressful, if it is not uncomfortable, it's not going to make you grow. So those are my tips. Okay, I got a list written down here. Those are my tips for maximizing the genetics that I was blessed with. Right, consistency. Been training every day since I was 10 years old, pretty much. High protein, low calorie diet. Gymnastics and other calisthenics moves that focus on tension under stretch. And then honestly putting in full effort every single workout that I have, or as much effort as I can possibly give in that day. That is how you maximize what you have, and that is how you get jacked without the use of steroids. By the way, I will also add in here, for some people, especially if you don't eat enough meat, creatine is like a godsend. That will increase your muscle mass and strength exponentially over a very short period of time, especially if you're not eating enough meat. Protein supplements also, a lot of people are not going to get that 1 gram per pound of goal body weight without using some form of whey isolate supplement. So definitely check that out as well. So those are my tips. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about this, go to everydaymeanseveryday.com. Check out our training app. We do daily workouts, daily habit tracking. It's way more than just fitness. Habit tracking. We got mindset courses. We got fitness courses. So you can learn about this stuff. You can empower yourself. We got a community in there. We've got daily coaching videos. We got everything you could possibly need and a bag of chips. So go check it out at everydaymeanseveryday.com. And I will see you on the next episode. Peace.